The maintenance hangar at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base sat under the Arizona sun like a monument to American air power. Inside, the temperature hovered at 98 degrees despite the industrial fans rotating overhead. The smell of jet fuel, hydraulic fluid, and hot metal permeated everything. Senior Airman Maya Reeves stood perfectly still beside the A-10 Thunderbolt II, her eyes locked on the aircraft's twin turbofan engines. She didn't move when Chief Master Sergeant Dawson walked past her without acknowledgement. She didn't react when the maintenance crew laughed about something across the hangar. She just stood there staring at the Warthog like she was trying to memorize every rivet. The A-10 wasn't beautiful. It wasn't sleek or elegant. It was a flying gun platform, ugly, brutal, and absolutely lethal. The GAU-8 Avenger rotary cannon made up nearly half the aircraft's length. Everything about the design screamed function over form, and Maya had spent the last 11 months cleaning, maintaining, and studying every inch of 3 different A-10s assigned to the 355th Wing. Reeves. She turned. Captain Walsh stood 5 feet away, clipboard in hand, his flight suit crisp despite the heat. Behind him, 4 pilots from the squadron gathered near the hangar entrance, their conversation carrying across the space. "Yes, sir?" "Colonel Barrett wants a full systems check on Hog 7 before 1400 hours. Can you handle that?" "Yes, sir. Already started the pre-check at 600. Walsh's eyebrows rose slightly. "You started 3 hours ago?" "Standard protocol is 8 hours before any scheduled flight, sir. I wanted to be thorough." For a moment, Walsh just looked at her. Then he nodded once. "Carry on." He walked away, and Maya returned her attention to the aircraft. She climbed the crew ladder, settling into the cockpit with practiced ease. Her hands moved across the instruments panel, checking switches, gauges, and indicators with methodical precision. She knew this cockpit better than most pilots. She'd rebuilt the throttle quadrant on Hog 7 after a hydraulic failure. She'd replaced the entire heads-up display system when the primary unit failed during a training exercise. She'd spent more hours inside this particular A-10 than anyone currently assigned to the squadron. "Hey, Reeves." She glanced down. Sergeant Marcus Chen stood at the base of the ladder, grinning up at her. "You planning to move in? Pretty sure the Air Force frowns on airmen living in the cockpit." Maya climbed down. "Just running the systems check Captain Walsh requested." "You know what I heard?" Chen lowered his voice, glancing toward the hangar entrance. "Colonel Barrett's looking for a volunteer pilot for the air show next month. Demonstration flight. Full routine. Rolls, inverted flight, gun runs, the whole show." "Okay." "That's it? Just okay?" Chen shook his head. "Everyone's talking about it. Whoever gets selected is basically guaranteed promotion consideration. Plus, it's in front of 50,000 people in every brass hat from Nellis to the Pentagon." Maya picked up her toolkit. "I'm maintenance crew, Chen. Pilots do air shows. I keep the birds flying. You've got your pilot's license though, right? I heard you got it before you even enlisted. Private pilot's license. Single-engine Cessnas. Not exactly A-10 Thunderbolt qualifications. Still, you fly better than half the nuggets who wash out of flight school." "How would you know that?" Chen grinned. "Because I've seen you in the simulator when you think nobody's watching. You sneak in there every Tuesday and Thursday night, 2200 hours, when maintenance has access for system diagnostics. Except you're not running diagnostics. You're flying combat scenarios." Maya's expression didn't change. "The simulator needs regular testing to ensure accuracy." "Right. And I'm sure you just coincidentally run scenarios that match exactly what the squadron pilots are training for." Chen's grin faded slightly. "Look, I'm not trying to bust your chops. I think it's impressive. But why waste all that talent in maintenance?" "I'm not wasting anything. This is my job." "But, Chen, I need to finish this systems check." He held up his hands in surrender. All right. Just saying you'd make one hell of a pilot." After he walked away, Maya stood alone with the A-10 for several long moments. Then she climbed back up the ladder. The cockpit wrapped around her like a second skin. Her hands found the flight stick without looking. Her feet settled naturally on the rudder pedals. She closed her eyes and ran through the startup sequence in her mind. Every switch, every button, every check in perfect order. She'd done it 1,000 times in her head. Another 1,000 in the simulator. But never in reality. Never with the engines actually running. never with the wheels leaving the ground. Because women like Maya Reeves didn't become A-10 pilots. They fixed A-10s. They maintained them. They kept them combat ready for the men who actually flew them into battle. That was just how it worked. The squadron briefing room filled up gradually over the next hour. Maya sat in the back corner, tablet in hand, reviewing maintenance logs while the pilots filtered in. They mostly ignored her. She was furniture, part of the background scenery that kept their war machines operational, but didn't merit direct acknowledgement. Colonel Jeffrey Barrett entered at precisely 1400 hours. Every pilot snapped to attention. Barrett was a legend. 22 years flying the A-10, including 3 combat deployments. He'd earned the Distinguished Flying Cross for a close air support mission in Afghanistan that had saved an entire Marine platoon from being overrun. His call sign was Sledge, and nobody questioned why. Seats, gentlemen. The room settled. Barrett moved to the front, his presence commanding without effort. Next month, we're hosting the Southwest Regional Air Show here at Davis-Monthan. 50,000 expected attendees, media coverage from every major network. And the Air Force wants us to showcase what the A-10 can do. He paused, scanning the room. I need a volunteer for the demonstration flight. Every hand in the room went up. Barrett smiled slightly. Good. Here's what I'm looking for. Precision flying under pressure. The routine includes a tactical approach, multiple gun runs, defensive maneuvers, and a short field landing. Everything happens at low altitude. No room for error. Whoever flies this demo represents not just this squadron, but every A-10 pilot in the Air Force. Lieutenant Jason Kovac spoke up. Sir, what's the selection process? Qualifier flights. Starting Monday, every interested pilot gets one shot to run the demonstration routine. I'll score based on technical execution, smoothness, and overall performance. Best score wins the slot. Barrett's eyes moved across the assembled pilots. This isn't just about flying, it's about representing excellence. Am I clear? Yes, sir. Maya watched from her corner, invisible among the eager pilots. She noticed how they all leaned forward slightly, how their body language radiated confidence and competitive energy. These were fighter pilots, Type A personalities who'd spent their entire lives proving they belonged in the cockpit. And then Captain Walsh said something that changed everything. Sir, what about maintenance crew participation? The room went silent. Every pilot turned to stare at Walsh like he'd suggested inviting janitors to fly combat missions. Barrett frowned. Explain, Captain. Well, sir, technically any qualified pilot could volunteer, and we do have maintenance personnel with pilot certifications. I was just wondering if you're talking about Reeves. It wasn't a question. Barrett's eyes found Maya in the back corner with laser precision. She felt every pilot in the room turn to look at her. Senior Airman Reeves has a private pilot's license. Walsh continued, his voice careful. And she's logged more cockpit time than most nuggets fresh out of flight school. Granted, it's maintenance and simulator hours, but still, I thought maybe. Captain Walsh. Barrett's voice carried a warning edge. Are you seriously suggesting we allow a maintenance airman with zero combat flight training to compete against experienced A-10 pilots for a high-visibility demonstration slot? I was just raising the possibility, sir. The answer is no. Barrett's tone left no room for discussion. This demonstration requires tactical proficiency that takes years to develop. Reeves might know how to fix an A-10, but that doesn't qualify her to fly one in front of 50,000 people and the national media. Lieutenant Kovac laughed. Come on, sir. Can you imagine? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your demonstration pilot, the mechanic who usually just changes the oil. The room erupted in laughter. Maya's face remained expressionless. She'd learned long ago that reactions only encouraged them. Show no weakness, give them nothing. Barrett raised his hand for silence. Enough, Kovac. That was unprofessional. Reeves is an excellent maintainer, and this squadron wouldn't function without our maintenance crew. But flying an A-10 in a demonstration routine is not something you learn from a simulator and a private pilot's license. He looked directly at Maya. No disrespect intended, Airman Reeves. But this is about putting our best foot forward. And that means experienced combat pilots only. Understood, sir. Maya's voice was steady, betraying nothing. Barrett nodded, then turned back to the pilots. Qualifier flights start Monday, 0800 hours. Come prepared. Dismissed. The pilots filed out, their conversations already focused on competition strategies and flight plans. Maya remained seated, still reviewing her tablet, as if the entire exchange hadn't happened. Captain Walsh approached her. "Reeves, I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that." "It's fine, sir. I just thought you deserved a shot. You've put in the work." "Respectfully, sir, Colonel Barrett is right. I don't have the qualifications. I'm maintenance crew. That's my job." Walsh studied her for a long moment. "You really believe that?" "Yes, sir." He didn't look convinced, but he nodded anyway. "All right. Carry on." After he left, Maya sat alone in the empty briefing room. The tablet screen glowed in front of her, but she wasn't reading anymore. She was thinking about the A-10, about the cockpit, about the feeling of her hands on the controls in the simulator, executing perfect attack runs and defensive maneuvers that most pilots needed months to master. She was thinking about the laughter, and she was thinking about something her flight instructor had told her 5 years ago, back when she was just a civilian kid saving every penny to pay for flying lessons at a tiny municipal airport in Oklahoma. "Maya, you're a natural pilot. Best student I've ever trained. But I'm going to be honest with you. The military doesn't make it easy for women, especially in combat aircraft. You'll have to be twice as good to get half the recognition. And even then, some people will never see past the fact that you're female." She'd enlisted anyway, scored top of her class in technical school, earned every certification the Air Force offered for A-10 maintenance, volunteered for every difficult assignment, proved herself 1,000 times over. And she was still just the mechanic who changes the oil. Maya stood, gathered her things, and walked out of the briefing room. Behind her, the laughter still echoed in her memory. The sun was setting when Maya returned to the hangar. Most of the day shift had gone home. The space felt different in the evening. Quieter, more intimate. Just her and the machines. She climbed into Hog 7's cockpit again. This time she didn't run diagnostics. She just sat there, hands on the controls, eyes closed, imagining what it would feel like to actually fly this beast. To feel the engines roar to life. To pull back on the stick and climb into the Arizona sky. To execute a perfect gun run, the GAU-8 Avenger spinning up beneath her, the entire airframe shaking from the recoil. "You know what your problem is, Reeves?" She opened her eyes. Chief Master Sergeant Dawson stood at the base of the ladder, arms crossed, his weathered face unreadable in the dimming light. "No, Chief. What's my problem?" "You care too much about what other people think you can't do, and not enough about what you know you can." Maya climbed down slowly. "With respect, Chief, Colonel Barrett made his position clear. I'm not qualified. Barrett's old school. Good man, excellent pilot. But he sees the world in boxes. Pilots in one box, maintenance in another. Never the two shall mix." Dawson stepped closer. "But I've been watching you for 11 months. I've seen you troubleshoot problems that stumped pilots with 10,000 flight hours. I've watched you in that simulator when you think nobody's paying attention. And I've seen the look on your face when you sit in that cockpit. It doesn't matter what I want, Chief. Maybe not. But it matters what you're capable of." He paused, then pulled something from his pocket, a small metal key. "This unlocks the simulator room after hours. Official reason is so maintenance can run diagnostics. Unofficial reason is so people like you can chase dreams nobody else thinks you deserve." Maya stared at the key. "Chief, I don't. Take it, use it, or don't. Your choice." He pressed the key into her hand. "But stop pretending you're content being invisible. I've met a lot of airmen in 30 years, Reeves. The ones who change things are never content with how things are." He walked away before she could respond. Maya looked down at the key in her palm. It was small, insignificant, just a piece of metal. But it represented something larger. Permission, possibility. She closed her fist around it. Monday morning arrived with cloudless skies and light winds. Perfect flying weather. The qualifier flights began at 800 sharp. Maya watched from the maintenance area as lieutenant after lieutenant took Hog 7 through the demonstration routine. Some flew well, others struggled. None of them made it look easy. Lieutenant Kovac went up at 1100 hours. His approach was aggressive, His gun runs precise, his defensive maneuvers tight. When he landed, the other pilots clapped. Colonel Barrett made notes on his clipboard without expression. By 1500 hours, 8 pilots had completed their qualifier flights. Barrett would make his decision by the end of the week. Maya spent the day doing her job, checking systems, replacing worn components, ensuring every A-10 in the squadron was combat ready. She worked methodically, thoroughly, professionally. Nobody watching would have guessed she was thinking about anything except maintenance. But that night, at 2200 hours, she unlocked the simulator room. The A-10 flight simulator was a full-motion cockpit mounted on hydraulic actuators, surrounded by high-resolution screens that created a 360-degree visual environment. It was primarily used for pilot training and currency checks, but maintenance ran diagnostics twice a week to ensure accuracy. Maya strapped herself into the seat and powered up the system. The screens flickered to life, displaying Davis-Monthan Air Force Base from the perspective of the runway. She initialized the aircraft systems, going through the startup sequence with practiced efficiency. Then she flew. She executed the demonstration routine exactly as Colonel Barrett had described it. Tactical approach from the north. Low-altitude pass over the runway at 500 feet. Pull up into a steep climbing turn. Roll inverted at the apex. Dive toward the simulated target range. Gun run at 200 feet. Pull up. Defensive spiral. Second gun run from a different angle. Climbing loop. Barrel roll. Final approach with short field landing. Her first attempt was sloppy. She overshot the initial turn, came in too fast on the gun run, and landed hard. She reset the simulator and tried again. The second attempt was better, smoother transitions, better altitude control. Still not perfect. She ran it 37 more times that night. By 0300 hours, she could execute the entire routine with her eyes closed. Every maneuver flowed seamlessly into the next. Her altitude control was precise to within 5 feet. Her airspeed management was textbook perfect. Her landings were so smooth they barely registered on the impact sensors. She climbed out of the simulator as the first hints of dawn lightened the eastern sky. Her body ached from hours in the cockpit. Her mind was exhausted but clear, and for the first time in 11 months, she let herself imagine what might be possible. Wednesday afternoon, Colonel Barrett announced his decision. After reviewing all qualifier flights, I'm selecting Lieutenant Jason Kovach as our demonstration pilot for the Southwest Regional Air Show. Applause filled the briefing room. Kovach stood, accepting congratulations from the other pilots with practiced humility. He'd earned it. His qualifier flight had been technically excellent, even if it lacked the kind of artistry that separated good pilots from great ones. Maya sat in her usual corner, invisible among the celebration. She felt nothing. No disappointment, no anger. Just confirmation of what she'd always known. People like her didn't get opportunities like this. However, Barrett continued, I'm not satisfied with Kovach's landing approach. It was adequate, but not exceptional. So here's what we're going to do. Every pilot who qualified gets one more shot. Friday afternoon, best overall performance wins. Kovach, that includes you. Nothing's guaranteed until I see perfect execution. The room quieted. This was unusual. Barrett rarely second-guessed his decisions. Sir, Kovach said carefully, I thought you were satisfied with my performance. I was satisfied. Now I want to see exceptional. This air show is important. I need to know I'm putting the absolute best pilot in that cockpit. Barrett scanned the room. Any questions? Nobody spoke. Good. Dismissed. As the pilots filed out, Captain Walsh approached Barrett. Maya was close enough to overhear their conversation. Sir, can I ask what changed your mind? Barrett was quiet for a moment. Walsh, I've been flying the A-10 for 22 years. I know what excellence looks like. And what I saw in those qualifier flights was competence, not excellence. These pilots are good, but none of them made me believe they could truly showcase what this aircraft is capable of. So what are you looking for? Someone who doesn't just fly the A-10. Someone who understands it. Someone who treats it like an extension of their own body instead of a machine they're operating. Barrett shook his head. Maybe I'm being too critical, but this demonstration matters. It needs to be perfect. Walsh glanced toward Maya, who was pretending to review her tablet. Sir, What if I told you there was someone on this base who fits that exact description? Then I'd say you're talking about Reeves again, and my answer is still no. With respect, sir. Captain Walsh, I appreciate your advocacy for your maintenance crew, but the answer remains no. Reeves is not qualified, regardless of how many hours she's logged in the simulator. Barrett's voice softened slightly. She's a talented maintainer, but that doesn't make her a combat pilot. Yes, sir. After Barrett left, Walsh walked over to Maya. You heard that? Hard not to, sir. He's wrong, you know. Maya looked up from her tablet. Is he, sir? I don't have combat training. I don't have tactical experience. I've never even flown an actual A-10. Everything I know comes from simulators and maintenance work. Maybe Colonel Barrett is exactly right. Maybe I'm not qualified. Or maybe you're more qualified than any of them, and nobody wants to admit it because you don't fit their preconceived notion of what an A-10 pilot should look like. That's a nice thought, sir, but it doesn't change reality. Walsh studied her for a long moment. What if you had a chance to prove them wrong? Would you take it? That's a hypothetical question, sir. Humor me. Maya met his eyes. If I had a genuine chance to demonstrate that I could fly the A-10 as well as any pilot in this squadron, I would take it. But I don't have that chance, and wishing for it doesn't make it real. Fair enough. Walsh turned to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, Reeves, I believe in you. Whether that matters or not, I wanted you to know. Thank you, sir. After he was gone, Maya sat alone in the empty briefing room for the second time that week. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. She thought about Chief Dawson's words, about the key to the simulator room, about the 37 perfect runs she'd completed in the darkness before dawn. And she thought about something else, something that had been growing in the back of her mind since Monday, a dangerous idea that she'd been trying to suppress because acknowledging it meant accepting risk she'd spent her entire Air Force career avoiding. What if she did have a chance to prove them wrong? Not a sanctioned chance, not an approved opportunity, but a chance nonetheless. The thought terrified her and thrilled her in equal measure. Thursday morning began like any other day at Davis-Monthan. Morning briefing at 0700, maintenance schedules distributed, work assignments confirmed. Maya received her tasking without comment. Complete Phase 1 inspection on Hog 7, the same aircraft being used for the demonstration qualifier flights. She worked alone in the hangar, methodically checking every system: landing gear, hydraulics, flight controls, avionics, engines. She knew this aircraft intimately, every quirk, every minor imperfection, every component that needed extra attention. Around 1,000 hours, Sergeant Chen found her elbow deep in the left engine nacelle, inspecting turbine blades for fatigue cracks. Reeves, you seen the scuttlebutt? She didn't look up. I don't do scuttlebutt, Chen. Yeah, well, this one's interesting. Apparently, Lieutenant Kovac was bragging at the O Club last night about how the demonstration slot is basically his. Said the second round of qualifiers is just Barrett going through the motions to make it look fair. Good for Kovac. That doesn't bother you? Maya extracted herself from the engine compartment and wiped her hands on a rag. Why would it bother me? Kovac is a good pilot. He earned his slot. Come on, Reeves. I know you're not that zen about this. Chen lowered his voice. I also heard that Captain Walsh tried to convince Barrett to give you a shot. Twice. And Barrett shut him down both times. Captain Walsh was being generous. I appreciate the thought, but Colonel Barrett's decision is sound. I'm not qualified. You keep saying that, but I've seen your simulator scores. I've watched you troubleshoot problems that stumped pilots with thousands of flight hours. Hell, you rebuilt the entire avionics package on Hog 5 in 72 hours when everyone said it would take a week. You're the best maintainer on this base, and you've got better instincts about the A-10 than half our pilots. So stop pretending you're just some wrench-turner who belongs in the shadows. Maya set down the rag. Chen, what exactly do you want me to say? I want you to admit that you want this, that you care, that being passed over bothers you. It doesn't matter what I want. That's not an answer. For a long moment, Maya just looked at him. Then she said quietly, Of course I want it. Of course it bothers me. But wanting something doesn't make you entitled to it, and being bothered doesn't change reality. I'm a maintenance airman, not a pilot. That's the box I'm in, and no amount of wishing is going to change that. Chen's expression softened. Maybe not wishing, but action might. What kind of action? The kind that makes people see you differently. The kind that forces them to acknowledge what you're capable of. You're talking in riddles, Chen. He glanced around the empty hangar, then leaned closer. What if you had access to an A-10? Real access, not simulator time. What if you could actually prove you can fly this bird? Maya's expression went very still. That's a court-martial conversation, Sergeant. I'm not suggesting anything illegal, just hypothetical. Chen's voice was barely above a whisper now. There's a scheduled maintenance test flight for Hog 7 tomorrow at 0600. Pre-qualifier check to make sure all systems are nominal before Friday's competition. Usually a maintenance officer accompanies the test pilot. But what if the test pilot was delayed? What if someone else was already in the cockpit, qualified and ready to go? Chen, stop. I'm just saying, you're just saying nothing. Because this conversation never happened. Maya's voice was firm but not hostile. I appreciate whatever you're trying to do, but I'm not going to risk my career, your career, or anyone else's career on some half-baked scheme to prove a point. Chen held up his hands. You're right, I'm sorry. I just thought, I know what you thought, and I appreciate it, but no. He nodded, then walked away. Maya returned to her inspection, but her hands moved automatically now. Her mind was elsewhere. A test flight. Pre-qualifier systems check. Tomorrow at 600. The idea Chen had planted was dangerous, reckless, and completely impossible. It was also exactly the kind of opportunity she'd been thinking about yesterday when she sat alone in the briefing room. She forced herself to focus on the inspection. Check the turbine blades. Inspect the compressor sections. Verify bearing tolerances. Everything by the book. Everything perfect. But the thought wouldn't leave her. That evening, Maya stood in front of the squadron scheduling board in the administrative building. The test flight was listed clearly. FRI Aero 600, Hog 7, Main Test Flight, LT Peterson, Capt. Walsh. Lieutenant Peterson was the assigned test pilot. Captain Walsh would accompany as the maintenance officer. Standard procedure. Everything routine. Maya memorized the details, then walked away. She spent the next 3 hours in the maintenance records office reviewing every test flight protocol the squadron had ever filed. She studied checklists, procedures, safety requirements, and post-flight reporting standards. She absorbed everything, storing it all in her methodical, engineering-focused mind. At 2200 hours, she unlocked the simulator room again. This time, she didn't practice the demonstration routine. Instead, she ran maintenance test flight scenarios, cold start procedures, engine performance checks, control surface verification, landing gear cycling, emergency procedures. Every test that would normally be conducted during a pre-qualifier systems check. She ran each scenario 50 times. By 0400 hours Friday morning, she could execute every maintenance test procedure with flawless precision. Her hands knew every switch, every control, every input sequence. Her mind held every acceptable parameter range, every tolerance specification, every safety limitation. She climbed out of the simulator as dawn approached, and then she made a decision that would either define her career or destroy it. Friday morning, 0545 hours. Maya arrived at the flight line in her flight suit. She'd signed one out from the equipment room the night before, claiming she needed it for cockpit maintenance work. Nobody questioned her. Maintenance crew sometimes wore flight suits when working inside aircraft. It was cleaner than coveralls and provided better freedom of movement. She carried her maintenance toolkit and a clipboard with the official test flight checklist. Hog 7 sat on the ramp, ready for flight. The pre-flight inspection had been completed at 500 by the night shift crew. All systems green, all pre-flight checks complete. Maya approached the aircraft and climbed the ladder. The cockpit was dark and quiet. She settled into the seat, her body fitting the space like it had been molded for her. She strapped in carefully, shoulder harness, lap belt, leg restraints, everything secure. Then she waited. At 0555, she heard voices approaching. Lieutenant Peterson and Captain Walsh, Right on schedule. Maya took a deep breath and keyed the ground crew radio. Ground Hog 7. Hog 7, go ahead. Be advised. Maintenance crew already aboard for pre-check. Request confirm test pilot ETA. There was a pause. Then, Hog 7, confirm you have maintenance aboard. Affirmative. Senior Airman Reeves, conducting cockpit systems verification before test pilot arrival. Roger, Hog 7, stand by. Maya's heart hammered in her chest. This was it. The moment where everything either worked or collapsed completely. 30 seconds passed. Then Walsh's voice came over the radio. Hog 7, this is Captain Walsh. Reeves, what are you doing in that cockpit? Pre-flight systems check, sir. Making sure everything's ready for Lieutenant Peterson. Another pause. Longer this time. Reeves, you're not authorized to. Walsh stopped mid-sentence. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Quieter. Actually, disregard. Stand by. Maya waited, barely breathing. 2 minutes later, Walsh appeared at the base of the ladder. He climbed up and leaned into the cockpit. Reeves, what the hell are you doing? She met his eyes. My job, sir. Ensuring this aircraft is ready for flight. That's not what this is about, and you know it. Yes, sir. Walsh studied her for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, if I let this happen, and I mean if, you understand the risk you're taking? If something goes wrong, it's not just your career. It's mine, Chen's. Everyone who looked the other way. I understand, sir. Do you? Because I'm not convinced you've thought this through. You're talking about taking an A-10 up without authorization, without clearance, with authorization, sir. Maya held up the clipboard. This is a scheduled maintenance test flight. The checklist requires verification of all flight systems. I'm qualified to conduct that verification. And if Lieutenant Peterson happens to be delayed, protocol allows any rated pilot to complete the test flight as long as a maintenance officer is present. You're not a rated A-10 pilot. I'm a rated pilot, sir. Private certificate, instrument rating, 247 hours total time. According to AFI 11.2 A-10, maintenance test flights can be conducted by any pilot holding at minimum a private certificate, provided the flight remains within base airspace and doesn't exceed 5,000 feet AGL. Walsh stared at her. You memorized the Air Force instruction? Yes, sir. Jesus Christ, Reeves. He rubbed his face. This is insane. Yes, sir, but it's also legal. Barely. For nearly a full minute, Walsh said nothing. Maya could see the conflict on his face, the rule-following officer warring with the part of him that believed she deserved this chance. Finally, he said, if you do this, you run the standard maintenance test profile. Nothing fancy, no demonstration maneuvers, just the checklist. Systems verification only. Are we clear? Crystal clear, sir. And if Colonel Barrett finds out? He won't, sir. Not unless you tell him. Walsh shook his head slowly. I must be out of my mind. He climbed down the ladder, then looked back up. Where's Lieutenant Peterson? Delayed, sir. Called in sick 30 minutes ago. Stomach bug. Convenient. Yes, sir. Very convenient. Walsh didn't smile, but something flickered in his eyes. Acknowledgement, maybe, or respect for the sheer audacity of what she was attempting. Ground, this is Captain Walsh. Hog 7 test flight is proceeding as scheduled. Senior Airman Reeves will conduct pilot duties due to Lieutenant Peterson's illness. I'll accompany as maintenance officer per protocol. Roger, sir. Hog 7 cleared to taxi when ready. Walsh climbed into the rear maintenance access area, settling into the jump seat behind the cockpit. Reeves, this is your show, but if anything, and I mean anything, goes wrong, I'm taking the controls and we're landing immediately. Understood? Understood, sir. Maya's hands moved to the engine start panel. She began the startup sequence, her movements precise and confident. Left engine first. Fuel flow established. Ignition. The TF-34 turbofan spooled up with a rising whine that built to a throaty roar. Right engine next. Same procedure. Both engines running smooth and clean. She ran through the pre-taxi checklist with methodical efficiency. Flight controls? Check. Instruments? Check. Warning lights, all green. Hydraulics, normal pressure. Everything perfect. Ground Hog 7 ready to taxi. Hog 7, cleared to taxi runway 21 via taxiway Alpha. Winds 230 at 8 knots. Cleared to taxi runway 21 via Alpha, Hog 7. Maya released the parking brake and advanced the throttles slightly. The A-10 rolled forward, 60,000 pounds of armored close air support aircraft responding to her inputs like a living thing. She taxied slowly, carefully, maintaining centerline with precision. The runway appeared ahead, stretching into the distance under the early morning sun. Tower, Hog 7 holding short 21, ready for departure. Hog 7, cleared for takeoff runway 21. Maintain base airspace, stay below 5,000 feet. Cleared for takeoff 21, maintain base airspace below 5,000, Hog 7. This was it, the moment everything changed or everything ended. Maya taxied onto the runway, lined up on center line, and set the parking brake. She ran the final before takeoff checks. Canopy locked, harness tight, trim set, flaps configured. Captain Walsh, all systems show green, ready for departure. From the jump seat, Walsh's voice was tight. You've got the aircraft, Reeves. Don't make me regret this. No, sir, I won't. Maya released the parking brake. She advanced both throttles smoothly forward to military power. The A-10 accelerated down the runway, the twin turbofans pushing her back into the seat. 50 knots, 70, 90. At 110 knots, she eased back on the stick. The nose wheel lifted. The main gear followed seconds later. And for the first time in her life, Senior Airman Maya Reeves felt an A-10 Thunderbolt II leave the ground beneath her hands. The aircraft climbed smoothly into the Arizona morning, and Maya's heart soared with it. Behind her, Walsh said quietly, "Holy shit, you actually did it." Maya's voice was steady as she keyed the radio. Tower, Hog 7 airborne, climbing to 3,000 feet for systems checks. Roger, Hog 7, contact base operations on uniform. Switching to uniform, Hog 7. She leveled at 3,000 feet and began the test protocol. Flight control check, ailerons, elevator, rudder, all surfaces responding normally. Engine performance check, both turbofans running at optimal parameters. Hydraulic system check, pressure holding steady across all circuits. Landing gear cycle, extend, retract, extend again. All 3 wheels green. Every check was perfect, every system nominal. The A-10 flew like it had been built specifically for her. And then, because she couldn't help herself, Maya performed one maneuver that wasn't on the checklist. She rolled the aircraft. Left aileron input. Slight forward pressure on the stick. The horizon tilted, then spun as the A-10 rolled through 360 degrees with precision smoothness. She leveled wings exactly on her original heading, altitude unchanged, airspeed constant. "Reeves!" Walsh's voice cracked through the intercom. "What the hell was that?" "Control responsiveness check, sir. Verifying aileron authority at cruise power." "That's not on the checklist." "No, sir, but it should be." She could hear Walsh's exasperated sigh, but he didn't order her to land. Maybe because he knew this moment was important. Maybe because he understood what it meant for her to finally actually fly this aircraft. Or maybe because the roll had been absolutely perfect. Maya continued the test protocol for another 20 minutes, completing every required check with flawless execution. Then she set up for landing. Pattern entry, downwind leg, base turn, final approach. The runway appeared ahead. Maya configured the aircraft for landing. Gear down, 3 green lights. Flaps deployed. Speed reduced to approach velocity. She crossed the threshold at exactly the right altitude and airspeed. Throttles to idle. Gentle back pressure on the stick. The main gear kissed the runway so softly that Walsh actually laughed. "That was a greaser, Reeves. Textbook perfect." Maya couldn't stop the smile that spread across her face. "Thank you, sir." She taxied clear of the runway and back to the ramp. Engines shut down, checklist complete. Her first real A-10 flight was over. But the consequences were just beginning. Maya climbed out of the cockpit with legs that felt steadier than they had any right to be. Her hands weren't shaking. Her breathing was controlled. On the outside, she appeared calm. Just another routine maintenance flight completed without incident. Inside, adrenaline roared through her veins like jet fuel. Captain Walsh descended the ladder behind her, his expression unreadable. He waited until they were away from the aircraft before speaking. "Reeves, what you just did was either the bravest thing I've ever witnessed or the most reckless. I haven't decided which." "Yes, sir." "That roll wasn't authorized." "No, sir." "But it was perfect." Walsh's voice dropped lower. "Everything was perfect. The takeoff, the systems checks, the landing. If I hadn't known this was your first time in an actual A-10, I would have sworn you had 100 hours in type." Maya didn't respond. What could she say that wouldn't sound like arrogance or false modesty? Walsh glanced toward the squadron building. "Colonel Barrett arrives for duty in 30 minutes. This flight will be logged as a routine maintenance test. Lieutenant Peterson was the pilot of record due to illness. I was the maintenance officer. The flight was conducted within all regulatory parameters and all systems checked nominal. Are we clear on this story?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Because if anyone asks questions, and I mean anyone, that's the only version that exists." He paused. "But Reeves, between you and me, you just proved something important. Not to Barrett, not to the squadron, to yourself. You proved you can fly this aircraft as well as anyone wearing wings. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, because now you have to decide what you're going to do with that knowledge." Walsh walked away, leaving Maya standing alone on the ramp with Hog 7 behind her. She looked back at the aircraft, this ugly, brutal, beautiful machine that had just carried her into the sky and back to Earth without hesitation. She'd spent 11 months maintaining A-10s, studying them, dreaming about them, and in 27 minutes of actual flight time, she'd confirmed what part of her had always known. She belonged in that cockpit. But belonging and being allowed were two very different things. The rest of Friday proceeded normally. Maya completed her maintenance duties, filed paperwork for the test flight, and avoided drawing attention. The other maintainers treated her exactly as they always had, with professional courtesy and occasional casual conversation. Nobody suspected that anything unusual had occurred during the 600 test flight. The second round of qualifier flights began at 1300 hours. Maya watched from the maintenance area as pilot after pilot took Hog 7 through the demonstration routine. Lieutenant Kovac flew first, and his performance was significantly improved from Monday. Smoother transitions, better altitude control, more aggressive but controlled maneuvering. When he landed, even the maintenance crew acknowledged it had been an impressive display. "Kovac has got this locked down," Sergeant Chen said, standing beside Maya. "That was textbook demonstration flying." "It was good," Maya agreed. "Just good?" "It was technically excellent, but it lacked something." "Like what?" Maya considered her answer carefully. "Like the feeling that the pilot and aircraft are one thing instead of two. Kovac flies the A-10 very well, but he doesn't understand it the way someone who's lived inside its systems would. He's operating a machine, not partnering with it." Chen gave her a sideways look. "That's pretty specific analysis for someone who's never flown one." "I watch a lot of flights." "Right, just watching." Chen's voice carried a knowing tone. "So, hypothetically speaking, if someone had maybe taken an unauthorized ride this morning during a maintenance test flight, would that person have flown with more of that partnership feeling you're describing?" Maya's expression didn't change. "That would be a violation of regulations, Chen. I wouldn't know anything about it." "Of course not. My mistake." He grinned. "But hypothetically, if such a person existed, I'd bet they flew that bird like it was an extension of their own body. I'd bet they made it look easy, and I'd bet they landed so smoothly that the maintenance officer accompanying them probably had to change his pants afterward. Your hypothetical scenarios are very detailed. I'm creative like that." They watched in silence as the next pilot took off. This one was less polished than Kovac. Good fundamentals, but lacking the precision required for a demonstration routine. "You know what the real shame is?" Chen said quietly. "The best pilot on this base will never get credit for it, because the best pilot is wearing the wrong uniform and has the wrong job title." Maya turned to look at him. "Chen, I appreciate what you're trying to say, but I'm not the best pilot on this base. I have almost no actual flight time in the A-10. I've never flown combat. I've never even flown tactical formation. I'm good in a simulator, and apparently I can execute a basic test flight without crashing." But that doesn't make me better than pilots with thousands of hours and multiple deployments. Maybe not. But you've got something they don't. What's that? You've got the hunger. You want it more than they do, and that matters. Before Maya could respond, the radio crackled with an emergency transmission. Tower, Viper 2-3 declaring emergency. Engine failure, attempting to return to base. Both Maya and Chen snapped to attention. Viper 2-3 was one of the F-16s from the 162nd Fighter Wing, operating out of the same airspace. The tower's response was immediate and professional. Viper 2-3, roger emergency. Winds 210 at 10 knots, cleared to land any runway, emergency equipment standing by. Viper 2-3, attempting runway 21 but I'm losing altitude fast, may not make the field. Maya's mind automatically calculated distance, altitude and glide ratio for an F-16 with engine failure. The numbers weren't good. Across the ramp, Colonel Barrett emerged from the squadron building at a run. He'd obviously heard the emergency call. Behind him, the duty officer and several pilots followed. "Where's the nearest qualified pilot?" Barrett shouted. "Sir, Lieutenant Williams is on the flight line. He's pre-flighting Hog 9 for his qualifier. Get him airborne now. If that F-16 punches out, we need search and rescue overhead immediately." "Yes, sir." But Lieutenant Williams was on the far side of the flight line, at least 5 minutes away even at a dead run. And the F-16 pilot's voice over the radio indicated he didn't have 5 minutes. Maya looked at Hog 7, still parked on the ramp from the morning test flight. Still fueled. Still armed with the training gun pods from yesterday's qualifiers. Still ready to fly. She looked at Chen. He was already thinking the same thing. "Don't," he said quietly. "Reeves, don't even think about it. Someone needs to get airborne. Not you. If you take that aircraft without explicit orders, I already took it this morning without explicit orders. That was different. That was a logged test flight with Captain Walsh aboard. This would be necessary." Maya was already moving toward Hog 7. Her body acted on instinct, on training, on the 11 months of preparation that had led to this exact moment. Captain Walsh appeared from the maintenance office. "Reeves, what are you doing?" "Getting airborne, sir. That F-16 needs support. You're not authorized." "Sir, with respect, I'm the only pilot within 100 yards of a ready aircraft. Lieutenant Williams is 5 minutes away. The F-16 pilot doesn't have 5 minutes. Someone needs to get overhead now, and I'm the only option." Walsh's face went through a rapid series of expressions: shock, understanding, fear, and finally resignation. "If you do this, I can't protect you. Barrett will have your career." "Probably, sir. But at least the F-16 pilot will have support." She climbed the ladder without waiting for permission. The cockpit wrapped around her like a familiar embrace. Straps secured, switches configured. The startup sequence flowed from her hands automatically. She'd done it so many times in the simulator, and once for real this morning, that muscle memory took over. Left engine start, right engine start. Both turbofans spooling up. The radio erupted with confused voices. "Who's starting Hog 7? "Ground. Identify pilot in Hog 7. And then Colonel Barrett's voice, sharp as a blade. "Hog 7, shut down engines immediately. You are not authorized for flight." Maya keyed the radio. "Colonel, Viper 2-3 is in emergency. I'm the nearest available pilot with a ready aircraft. Request permission to launch for search and rescue support." "Hog 7 negative. Shut down and—" Barrett stopped mid-sentence. There was a long pause. Then, "Who the hell is in that cockpit?" "Senior Airman Reeves, sir." The silence that followed lasted 3 full seconds. Maya could imagine the shock on Barrett's face, the confusion spreading through everyone listening to the radio. Finally, the F-16 pilot's voice broke through. "I don't care who it is. I'm passing through 3,000 feet and still sinking. If somebody can get overhead and mark my position, I'd really appreciate it." Maya didn't wait for Barrett's response. She released the parking brake and advanced the throttles, taxiing toward the runway without clearance. "Hog 7, I did not authorize takeoff. Return to the ramp immediately." "Sir, respectfully, people before protocol. I'm launching." She reached the runway, turned onto centerline, and pushed the throttles to military power. The A-10 accelerated down the concrete. At rotation speed, she pulled back on the stick and the aircraft leaped into the sky. "God damn it, Reeves!" Barrett's voice was somewhere between fury and disbelief. Maya climbed steeply, banking toward the coordinates where the F-16 was descending. She checked her systems. Everything green. Fuel sufficient. Radio functioning. GPS locked. Viper 2-3, Hog 7 airborne and heading your direction. What's your position? Hog 7. I'm 10 miles northwest of the field, passing through 2,000 feet. I can see the base, but I don't think I'm going to make it. Copy, Viper. I'm 3 minutes out. Maintain best glide speed. If you have to punch out, I'll mark your position and coordinate rescue. Roger, Hog. Appreciate the assist. Maya pushed the throttles forward, trading fuel efficiency for speed. The A-10 wasn't built to be fast, but she coaxed every available knot from the engines. Below, the Arizona desert stretched in all directions. Scrub brush, rocky outcroppings, and exactly 0 good places to land a crippled F-16. She spotted the stricken fighter 2 minutes later, descending through 1,500 feet with its single remaining engine spooled down to idle. The pilot was trying to stretch his glide, but physics was winning the argument. Viper 2-3, I have visual. You're not going to make the runway. Yeah, I'm coming to the same conclusion. Preparing to eject. Copy. When you punch out, I'll mark your position and stay overhead until rescue arrives. Thanks, Hog. Maya maneuvered into a wide orbit around the descending F-16, maintaining visual contact while staying well clear of the potential ejection path. She watched the fighter drop lower, the pilot fighting to keep it level as altitude bled away. At 800 feet, the canopy blew off the F-16. 1 second later, the ejection seat fired. Maya saw the rocket motor ignite, saw the seat and pilot separate from the aircraft, saw the parachute deploy. The F-16 nosed over and impacted the desert in a spray of dust and debris. Viper 2-3 on the chute, good canopy, Maya transmitted. Tower, Hog 7 has visual on successful ejection. Pilot descending approximately 9 miles northwest of the field. I'm staying overhead. Hog 7, roger. Rescue helicopter launching now, ETA 10 minutes. Maya orbited the landing site as the F-16 pilot drifted down under his parachute. She marked the exact GPS coordinates and transmitted them to Tower. The pilot landed hard but immediately stood up, gathering his parachute, a good sign that he wasn't seriously injured. Viper 2-3, Hog 7. You okay down there? The pilot's voice came through, slightly breathless but alive. Hog 7, Viper 2-3. I'm good. Thanks for the eyes overhead. Nice to know someone was watching. Happy to help. Rescue is inbound, ETA 8 minutes. Roger. And hey, Hog, I don't know who you are, but that was some impressive flying getting here that fast. Maya smiled despite herself. Just doing the job. She maintained her orbit until the rescue helicopter arrived, then cleared the area and turned back toward Davis-Monthan. Her fuel was still adequate. All systems remained green. The flight had been textbook perfect, but the consequences waiting for her on the ground would be anything but perfect. Maya landed 15 minutes later. A crowd had gathered near the ramp, pilots, maintenance crew, officers, and standing at the front of them all, Colonel Jeffrey Barrett. She taxied to parking, shut down the engines, and climbed out of the cockpit with the same calm efficiency she brought to everything. Barrett was waiting at the base of the ladder. Senior Airman Reeves. His voice was controlled, but Maya could hear the anger underneath. You just launched an aircraft without authorization, violated direct orders to remain on the ground, and executed a combat search and rescue mission with 0 tactical qualification. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in? Yes, sir. Probably a lot. Probably? Barrett's eyebrows rose. Reeves, you're looking at Article 15 at minimum, possibly a court-martial. You could lose your rank, your job, everything. Yes, sir. I understand. Then why did you do it? Maya met his eyes directly. Because it was the right thing to do, sir. A pilot was in distress. I had the skills, the aircraft, and the opportunity to help. So I did. The right thing would have been following orders and waiting for an authorized pilot. With respect, sir, Lieutenant Williams was 5 minutes away. The F-16 pilot didn't have 5 minutes. Sometimes the right thing and the authorized thing aren't the same thing. Barrett stared at her for a long moment. Behind him, the assembled crowd watched in silence. This was unprecedented. A maintenance airman openly challenging a squadron commander's authority. Finally, Captain Walsh stepped forward. Sir, if I may, Senior Airman Reeves was acting on the training and qualifications she possesses. She holds a valid pilot certificate. The aircraft was mission-ready, and her actions directly contributed to a successful rescue operation. Captain Walsh, whose side are you on here? The side that says we should evaluate people based on their capabilities, not their job titles, sir. Barrett's jaw tightened. This isn't about capabilities. This is about discipline, chain of command, military order. You can't just have airmen launching aircraft whenever they feel like it because they think it's the right thing to do. You're absolutely correct, sir. The voice came from behind the crowd. Everyone turned. A one-star general was walking across the ramp. Brigadier General Catherine Monroe, commander of the 12th Air Force. She must have been visiting the base and heard about the emergency. Everyone snapped to attention. As you were, Monroe said, her eyes fixed on Maya. Senior Airman Reeves, I presume? Yes, ma'am. Monroe stopped directly in front of her. I monitored your radio communications during the rescue operation. Your airmanship was exceptional, your decision-making was sound, and your professionalism under pressure was exactly what we expect from Air Force personnel. She paused. However, Colonel Barrett is also correct. You violated direct orders and launched without authorization. That cannot be overlooked, regardless of the outcome. Maya's heart sank. Yes, ma'am. Which puts me in an interesting position, Monroe continued. On one hand, I have an airman who displayed initiative, courage, and exceptional flying skill when it mattered most. On the other hand, I have an airman who flagrantly disregarded the chain of command. She turned to Barrett. Colonel, what do you recommend? Barrett's expression was conflicted. Ma'am, regulations are clear. This warrants disciplinary action. I agree, but I'm asking what you recommend, not what the regulations say. For a long moment, Barrett said nothing. He looked at Maya, really looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time. Then he said quietly, General, I recommend we make Senior Airman Reeves clean up her own mess. Explain. She took an unauthorized flight. She should face the consequences. But she also proved she can fly an A-10 under pressure better than most pilots with years of experience. Barrett's voice grew stronger. So I recommend we give her a choice. Accept Article 15 and disciplinary action, or demonstrate that today's flight wasn't a fluke by completing the demonstration routine tomorrow. If she can execute it flawlessly in front of the entire airshow crowd and prove she belongs in that cockpit, I'll personally sponsor her application for officer training school and pilot training. The crowd erupted in whispers. General Monroe raised a hand for silence. That's an unusual recommendation, Colonel. Yes, ma'am, but this is an unusual situation. Monroe turned to Maya. Senior Airman Reeves, you understand what Colonel Barrett is proposing. If you accept, you'll fly the demonstration routine tomorrow at the Southwest Regional Air Show. 50,000 people watching. National media coverage. Zero room for error. If you succeed, Colonel Barrett will sponsor your application to become a pilot. If you fail, you face full disciplinary consequences for today's unauthorized flight. Those are your options. Maya's mind raced. This was it. The opportunity she'd dreamed about. The chance to prove herself. But the stakes were impossibly high. Her entire career balanced on one perfect performance. She thought about the simulator runs, the unauthorized test flight, the rescue mission. Every moment had led to this. I accept, ma'am. Monroe nodded slowly. Very well. Colonel Barrett, make it happen. And Reeves, don't make us regret this. No, ma'am, I won't. The general walked away, and the crowd slowly dispersed. Barrett remained, studying Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. Reeves, you just bought yourself either the opportunity of a lifetime or the fastest route to a court-martial. I suggest you spend tonight making sure it's the former. Yes, sir. And Reeves, for what it's worth, that was some damn fine flying today. Both flights. He knew. Of course he knew. The morning test flight hadn't been as secret as she'd hoped. Thank you, sir. Barrett walked away, leaving Maya standing alone on the ramp. Sergeant Chen approached cautiously. So, you're flying the demonstration tomorrow? Apparently. That's insane. Yes, you're going to be amazing. Maya looked at him surprised. How do you know? Because you've already proven it. Twice. Tomorrow you just have to do it with 50,000 witnesses. He grinned. No pressure. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, light winds, ideal conditions for an air show. Maya arrived at the flight line at 500, 3 hours before showtime. She completed the pre-flight inspection personally, checking every system with obsessive thoroughness. Everything was perfect. Captain Walsh found her at 0630. "How you feeling?" "Terrified, sir." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He handed her a flight suit with proper patches and insignia. "General Monroe authorized this. For today, you're officially designated as the demonstration pilot. Temporary duty orders and everything?" Maya stared at the flight suit. It was real. This was actually happening. "Sir, what if I screw this up?" "Then you'll face the consequences, learn from the experience, and find another way to achieve your goals." "But you're not going to screw it up, Reeves. You've already proven you can fly this bird. Now, you just have to show everyone else." By 0800, the airshow crowd was arriving. Families spread blankets on the grass. Children pointed at static display aircraft. Vendors sold food and souvenirs. The energy was electric. Maya stood beside Hog 7, watching the crowd grow. 50,000 people, maybe more, all of them about to watch her either succeed spectacularly or fail catastrophically. Colonel Barrett appeared at 0815. "Reeves, you're up in 15 minutes. Any questions?" "No, sir. I'm ready." "Good." He paused, then added, "I'm going to tell you something my flight instructor told me before my first combat mission. Fear is normal. Doubt is normal. But once you're in that cockpit and the engines are running, none of that matters. You trust your training. You trust your aircraft. And you trust yourself. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "Then show me what you got." Maya climbed into the cockpit for what felt like the 100th time but was somehow completely different. This wasn't maintenance. This wasn't an unauthorized test flight. This was official, sanctioned, real. She strapped in, ran through her checks, and started the engines. The familiar vibration surrounded her. The instruments glowed steady and reliable. Everything was exactly as it should be. The announcer's voice boomed across the airshow grounds. "Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the far end of runway 21. Today's A-10 Thunderbolt demonstration will be flown by Senior Airman Maya Reeves of the 355th Wing. This is Senior Airman Reeves's first public demonstration flight. Please join us in welcoming her to the sky." The crowd applauded. Maya barely heard it. "Tower, Hog 7 ready for departure. Hog 7, you're cleared for takeoff. Winds 210 at 6 knots. Show them what you've got. Cleared for takeoff. Hog 7. Maya taxied onto the runway, aligned on centerline, and took one deep breath. Then she released the parking brake and pushed the throttles forward. The A-10 accelerated smoothly. At rotation speed, she pulled back and the aircraft climbed into the Arizona sky, and Maya Reeves began to fly. She executed the demonstration routine with precision that bordered on perfection. Tactical approach from the north, exactly 500 feet, exactly 250 knots. Pull up into a climbing turn, smooth, controlled, beautiful. Inverted roll at the apex, clean and crisp. Dive toward the target range, speed building, altitude bleeding off exactly as planned. The gun run came at 200 feet. She lined up the simulated target perfectly, thumbed the trigger, and the Ju-8 Avenger roared to life. Even with training rounds, the cannon's distinctive brrrr-t sound echoed across the airfield. The entire airframe shook from recoil. Maya rode it out, maintained her line, and pulled up into a defensive spiral that transitioned seamlessly into the second gun run from a different angle. Climbing loop, barrel roll, high-speed pass. Every maneuver flowed into the next like water, like the aircraft was an extension of her own body. The crowd below was on their feet, cheering. Maya didn't hear them. She was focused entirely on the aircraft, on the sky, on the perfect execution of every procedure she'd practiced 1,000 times. Final approach. Gear down, 3 green. Flaps configured, speed bleeding off exactly on profile. Threshold crossing at precisely the right altitude. She touched down so smoothly that the impact barely registered. The crowd erupted in applause. Maya taxied back to the ramp, shut down the engines, and sat in the sudden silence of the cockpit. She'd done it, actually done it. Colonel Barrett was waiting when she climbed down. He didn't say anything at first. He just extended his hand. Maya shook it. "That," Barrett said quietly, was the finest demonstration flight I've seen in 22 years. Welcome to the pilot community, Reeves. You've earned it. Around them, the maintenance crew, the pilots, and even General Monroe stood applauding. Maya felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in 11 months. Pride, not arrogance, not self-satisfaction. Just quiet, earned pride in what she'd accomplished. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You've still got officer training school, pilot training, and about 1,000 more challenges ahead. But Reeves, you've proven you belong. That's the hardest part. 3 weeks later, Maya received her acceptance letter to officer training school. 6 months after that, she began undergraduate pilot training. And 18 months after her unauthorized demonstration flight, Second Lieutenant Maya Reeves received her Air Force pilot wings. She was eventually assigned back to the 355th Wing, flying the same A-10s she'd once maintained. On her first day as an operational pilot, she walked past the maintenance hangar where it had all started. A young airman, maybe 20 years old, female, determined-looking, was performing a pre-flight inspection on one of the aircraft. Maya stopped. "How's she looking?" The airman snapped to attention. "Ma'am, aircraft is mission ready, all systems green. At ease. I'm just checking in." Maya smiled. "You do good work. These birds need maintainers who actually care." "Thank you, ma'am." The airman hesitated. "Ma'am, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "I heard you used to be maintenance, before you became a pilot." "That's true. How did you make the jump? From maintaining to flying?" Maya thought about that question, about the simulator runs, the unauthorized test flight, the rescue mission, the demonstration that had changed everything. "I stopped accepting that the box I was in was the only box I could be in," she said finally. "I stopped letting other people's limitations define my possibilities, and when opportunity appeared, even if it was risky, even if it was terrifying, I took it." The airman's eyes lit up with something Maya recognized: hunger, ambition, the refusal to settle. "Thank you, ma'am. That's really helpful." "Keep doing excellent work," Maya said. "And don't ever let anyone convince you that you don't belong somewhere just because you don't fit their preconceived notion of what belongs there." She walked away, leaving the young airman standing a little straighter, dreaming a little bigger. Behind her, the A-10s waited, ugly, brutal, beautiful machines that had carried her from invisibility to excellence. And somewhere in the Arizona sky, another story was just beginning.